comes back that Quentin has been shot down, they still do not know, did he walk away from it? Was he captured? Was he wounded? And then they hear he took one bullet right to the skull. Bang. Dead. Theodore tells his wife, Edith, comes back down, and it's all stiff upper lip because TR is a brave man. He's a Victorian. He's argued for this war, and he's gotten his war, and he's paid his price in blood. And he walks down to the stables where there was housed Quentin's old pony from the White House days. Now a very old horse, miniature Shetland. He goes into that stable and throws his arms around the neck of that pony because it reminded him of his son, and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. He was scheduled right after that to address the New York State Republican Convention held in Saratoga Springs. And his nephew was a state senator from Herkimer, was organizing a TR for governor movement. And TR's sister, that state senator's mother, said, Theodore, you don't have to go to Saratoga. Everyone will understand. Don't go. I have my duty. I have my duty to do, and I will go. And he comes here, and he addresses the crowd. He doesn't run for governor. He doesn't want to run for governor. And but he comes back and continues to go around the country selling war bonds, and is really very valuable to the country in that regard. He's selling war bonds in that picture. And there's a reason I have that up, aside from the fact that it's a very fine book, is that it's indicative of something. Now, Theodore Roosevelt would always give a speech. If you see a newsreel, when he's giving a talk, he's always doing this. Always doing this. What's he doing here? He's holding on for dear life. Okay? In the last year of his life, he spends 2.5 months in Roosevelt Hospital on the west side of Manhattan. The first time he had a cyst, which was to be removed in a very delicate area. And he doesn't have it done in the hospital. He has it at home without anesthetic because he's Theodore Roosevelt, damn it. And then he goes in to New York City for a full day of meetings the next day. And his secretary, he's in the hotel room, says, you don't have to finish all these letters today, Mr. President. No, I made a promise that I would work to the hilt and clean off my desk every night. And with that, he goes and sits down on the sofa, and the sofa is covered with blood. He's bleeding profusely. They take him to the hospital, and he is also suffering from the after effects of that Amazon fever. While he's there, and they think he's going to die. They even announce rumors reach the center of America that he is dead. But he is not going to die. But while he's in the hospital, he says to the doctors, I've also got this problem with my ear from the Amazon. Could you clean out whatever is in there? And they do. And they botch the operation. And they ruin his ear canal. And they ruin his equilibrium. He walks out of the hospital and he has to learn how to walk again. Okay, this is 1918. So, he's seriously overweight. He's blind in one eye from boxing in the White House. He's now deaf in one ear, and he cannot even walk straight. And what's he doing here? He's holding on there, and he's holding on to that stanchion. That's September 1918 when he's on one of these war bond situations. Now, the Republican Party is about ready to turn to him finally. He's been Mr. Preparedness. He's been Mr. Win the War. He's been Mr. We're against hyphenated Americans and people who are disloyal. And all of this is super popular at this point. So the party is about ready to turn to him, and the country is turning to the Republican Party. So they win the midterms in 1918, which is going to eventually crash Woodrow Wilson's League of Nations. But on that day, Theodore Roosevelt goes out to vote and is seriously sick on election day. And then on Armistice Day, he is taken back to Roosevelt Hospital, where he has a serious fever, reaches 104. He suffers from rheumatism and pains all over his body, and is not let out of the hospital until Christmas, where he insists on coming out. And the doctors say, we wish you would stay longer, but his recovery at home will be for a while, and he is wheeled out of the hospital. And they tell him, you may spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. And it's like, okay, if I have to function in a wheelchair, I will. And how can the country be ready to turn to a man this sick to be the next president of the United States? Well, here's a guy who had conquered childhood weakness and asthma, and you shoot him in Milwaukee in 1912, and he has a bullet in his chest, and he talks for an hour and a half, and he goes to the Amazon, and the germs and the microbes and the disease can't kill him, and he falls on his face in 1912, and you cannot kill this guy. He's indestructible. But he's not. He's not. And he comes out of the hospital on Christmas Day, and the family, what can be gathered in wartime, gathers together. But as the holidays break up, the family breaks up and leaves a big, empty house. And Theodore Roosevelt is left almost alone in that house, goes to bed on the evening of January 6th, 1919, and dies in his sleep. Vice President Thomas Marshall makes the remark later that death had to take him in his sleep, because otherwise there would have been a fight. We're not sure who would have won. But anyway, that is the story of Theodore Roosevelt. That is the story of Theodore Roosevelt's last war, triumph and tragedy. He had put back his political career, but the tragedy is, like Moses, he was not about to reach that promised land. And the greater tragedy was the price he paid in the blood of his own kith and kin. Thank you.